Thanks for coming back. In our main segment this week, as promised, we are talking to Tomas Härenstam of Free League. Tomas, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Fantastic to have you. I'm just a little bit of a fan. I can just reach out my hands.
Nice. Those are some nice looking books and things there. Yeah. They seem familiar somehow.
Yeah. I think you might have had a hand in these.
Maybe.
And it's not just us, but our Discord is always full of folks talking about Free League, and it often is something like, "I can't believe how good this is."
That's very nice to hear. Thank you.
Yeah. So, with that in mind, we first, though, want to get your superhero origin story. So how did you get involved in role-playing games, and then what led you to Free League?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I started playing tabletop RPGs 1985. It was like a big boom for RPGs here in Sweden, where we're based, where I'm from. In the mid 80s, we were a couple of years after the US, as most things. So, but there was a fairly strong local publication. There was one publisher that launched the whole thing here. And they sort of did that early on and launched a game, a fantasy game called Drakar och Demoner. So it's like D&D, but not D&D. And it was actually sort of more close to, it was actually a translation of a game called Fantasy World, I think, that was sort of from Chaosium. So it was originally a license from Chaosium. So anyway, that sort of took over the whole market. So everybody played this Swedish game, and then there was a post-apocalyptic one called Mutant that came a couple of years later. So those two games really dominated RPGs in Sweden. So not so many people played the actual D&D, and that. So I didn't really play D&D until much, much later. So I played those Swedish games, and most of us, kids back then, played those Swedish RPGs, and they were everywhere. You could find them in every toy store and pretty much almost every home. It was very common to see, a boxed set of one of those games.
Wow.
At whatever friend you had. So it was not a niche thing. It was really a broad mass market thing. So I was drawn into that as well and played a lot with my older brother. I got my first game when I was turning 11 or something. Got it from my dad. He didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was, but it looked cool. So I guess we're doing this now. So then my older brother helped out, and then we started playing and writing stuff and creating things. And yeah, we never really looked back. I mean, I've been off and on a little bit, later throughout life. I haven't played all the time, but I had a bit of a break for a few years when I was, trying to be an adult or something. But then I got back into it about, I guess it's 20 years ago now. And that led to writing, freelancing, creation of Free League, and doing that just for fun at the start. And then, it kind of grew into a business, and then it grew into a job. So now it's what I do, it seems, which it feels weird, but it's it's nice.
That's fantastic. And you're the CEO now at Free League. Can I ask how big Free League is?
Well, it's not probably as big as I think some people may think. I mean, we're a pretty small team, and we work with a lot of freelancers. So it's hard to say an exact number, because we have worked with lots of great artists and writers who are sort of freelancing for us. So I think the core team, I think, is about 10 to 12, depending on how you count, because not everybody works completely full time with this. Some do it part time, some people do it. So it's a little bit hard to give one exact number, but we're around 10 in the core team. But then, of course, a bunch of great freelancers across the world, really, that we work with for all of these games.
So would you say, kind of given what you've talked about your superhero backstory, do you then see Free League as being very Swedish in sort of the approach to role-playing games, or is it been more international in terms of your influences for you and your team?
Right. I think it's a bit of both. I mean, of course, I was very influenced by the indie games and the Forge movement 20 years ago. And that obviously came from, mainly the States. So there's definitely a lot of influences that way. I think there are some traits that we have that may be coming from the local tradition here as well. I think like having a fairly strong focus on art and graphic design, I think has been a part of the tradition here. And I think that sort of carries over into pre-league as well. Also maybe like the little bit more low key, a bit more gritty approach, not the high powered super fantasy, but more like, well, apart from like actual superhero games, which you actually have one right now, but even that one is a bit grittier than maybe your average one. So yeah, that sort of low key, low fantasy vibe, I think we have a lot of survival type games, and that I think also ties into like the local tradition here, like the way it looked throughout the years as well. So maybe a little bit, yeah.
How would you describe gaming in Sweden to folks who have never been there? I was lucky enough to go to Sweden and work for a while. I lived there like 9 months in Stenungsund. And I visited Gothenburg, and I was able to visit a sort of gaming store, but I couldn't find anything that was really RPGs. But since then, it sounds like it has really, gotten a lot bigger.
I mean, it was a very strong, I think, per capita. I mean, it's a small country, obviously, but per capita, I think we probably had, like, I would think, more role players per capita than most other countries back in the 80s. I think it's still a very strong tradition now, but it's obviously different because it's now everything is so international, and the kids watch Critical Role and they play D&D, and that's this. I mean, they do that here as well. So now back then it was like, you had like those Swedish games, and those were the ones that almost everybody played. That 95% played those games, and maybe like 5% knew about there are actually other games out there also. So it's changed now. I mean, now I think it's more international, but still is strong. We still have quite a lot of role players per capita still, I think. So it's definitely a strong tradition. But yeah, Gothenburg is where I found my first gaming store and started playing. There was like a game shop there, and I had like games from the States and elsewhere, not only those two Swedish ones. And that's when I sort of found the world of role playing, just not only those two games that everybody played, but like hundreds of different titles from mainly America. So I mean, that's when I was a big Marvel fan, like a superhero fan. So I played that was the first one I got, was the Marvel TSR game. I was blown away by, you can actually have a role playing game where you play, that. The James Bond RPG and the Indiana Jones RPG and a bunch of others that sort of that I dove into playing, like US games and UK, games from the UK, like Warhammer and everything. So that sort of took off, and those are, of course, now I think it's maybe the gaming scene is a bit similar to elsewhere. Of course, the conventions here are smaller. It's a much smaller market, smaller country, but I think overall, I guess the types of games that people play are roughly the same as elsewhere. Even though we still have those Swedish titles, we still actually make both of those. Dragonbane is our own edition of that, Drakar Demoner, that first Swedish RPG, which we are now the custodians of and made a translated version of. So that's still around, and Mutant Year Zero is our take on the Mutant game. So we actually did both of those games once we got a chance to. That was like you have to do that. You have to make your own your own take on those two games that we played as kids. So they're still around and doing well here in the local market. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when did Free League start? What led you to start it? And what were the first games that you worked on as Free League?
Yeah, I mean, it actually started out, there was that game I mentioned called Mutant. That was a post-apocalyptic game. The first edition came out like 84 or 85. That was my very first game. There was a new edition of that game that came out like 02, 03, something like that. And that drew me back into role-playing. I had a couple of years there around the turn of the century where I didn't get a chance to play that much. So that game, because it was a new edition of my favorite game growing up, it could have pulled me back in. And by then there were also like internet forums and things around this game. And that's where I found, a few others like-minded people. And we started creating like fan modules and stuff for that game. And that sort of grew into, and there was actually two other guys who started something called Free League, because that in another game back then that was brand new called Coriolis, which we were still making. there's a faction called Free League in that setting. So because they were doing freelancing stuff for Coriolis, they figured, well, let's take a name from that world, and that hence Free League. I was more into the mutant side of things, but we sort of all got together and started doing things together. And then Free League as a company got started because that publisher who published then Mutant and Coriolis went out of business. And they were at that point working on a new fantasy title. And they basically asked us, do you want to take this over? Because we're not going to be able to continue this project. So if you want to, then you can do this. You can have this project and carry it through. So and we decided to let's do that. So that's how Free League as a company was founded, because we needed some sort of framework to do it. But it was completely weekends and nights, and it was just a hobby thing. It was nobody's job at the time, far from it. And the logic back then was that RPGs are great, but that you cannot make a living making RPGs. That was maybe in the 80s, but not anymore. That's just not possible. So we didn't expect that at all. So we started working on that, and we completed that game. It was only in Swedish, and released it. And we founded Free League in 2011 and released that game in 2012. It was called Svavelvinter, which it's actually based on an old campaign for Drakar for Dragonbane that we're re-releasing soon in a new edition. So we'll get back to that as well in some fashion anyway. We did another fantasy title in 2013, and then after that we actually got a chance to get a license for a new edition of the Mutant game, because that had since been sort of dormant for a few years. And that was Mutant Year Zero. And that was out in 2014, and pretty much very soon after we figured, let's see if we can translate this and get it out like to the rest of the world. We got into touch with Modifius. It's a UK publisher who we sort of knew a little bit. They were doing Mutant Chronicles at the time, and which has the same origin as our Mutant and the same license owner. So through them, we kind of got a chance to get our game out. We translated it, got it, printed and everything, and that was the first game that came out like late 2014 in English. So that was the first time Free League did anything in English, and that sort of started. That sort of snowballed into everything else down the line, basically.
Amazing. So the last company that had held those games had not done well. What worked for you? What was the kind of magic that let you actually see success financially?
Oh, it's so hard to say. I think, like all these things, I think partly I hope we did a decent job. I think we did. But it's also partly just blind luck, really, because they went out of business in like 2011. And that, I think that was probably around like the low point, at least in Sweden, for tabletop RPGs. From like there was like nobody around. They were like the last one who were actually publishing anything that was sort of actual real books. I mean, there was like a lot of PDF print on demand stuff started happening, but it was super indie, which was kind of fun. It was a fun scene, but it was like nobody was actually doing this nobody was printing big books or anything. It was just not done. But then things started changing, and I think a lot of that had to do with crowdfunding and Kickstarter taking off. So we actually, by chance, crowdfunded that Mutant Year Zero in the Swedish edition, but we didn't even know what crowdfunding was. It was just this, let's try this strange thing. So we did, and that worked pretty well, and that sort of took off. And then so we started doing that, and after a couple of years, because back then you couldn't do actual Kickstarters as a Swedish company. It was limited to US or UK, I think. And then they expanded that. So I think around 2015 or 16, we could actually do an actual Kickstarter. And then we kind of grew from there. So that, I think that whole, and then there was like a general revival for tabletop RPGs, I think across the world, and Kickstarter helped run that. And then Stranger Things came along, 2016, something like that put like D&D and tabletop role playing on the map. And I think, it's just started growing again. So I think we were also very lucky to just be there and actually having a few products out and ready to go when that started happening. So in that sense, we were kind of lucky, I think. But yeah, also I think hopefully we did some decent games even back then. Even though today, looking at them, you always feel like, oh, that could have been better. But yeah, they did pretty well. So I think one more point that helped us a lot back then is that we started publishing also art books based on Simon Stålenhag's Tales from the Loop art book. Mm-hmm. He was just publishing like his art on a blog online, just like, he didn't have it for fun. He was doing completely different things. And we had got a chance to work with him, and we offered to publish his book, his art in a book, and we did. And that did well. And then we did an RPG based on that, because obviously we're an RPG company. And that became Tales from the Loop, the role-playing game, which also, luckily, because that was before Stranger Things, but it came out right after Stranger Things happened. And this is a similar vibe, obviously, like Hits on Bikes thing, which, back then, and now it's done to death a little bit. But 10 years ago, that was fresh. And Tales from the Loop, I think, just hit a nerve. Also with that amazing art that he did. So that game, I think, Mutant Year Zero was like the first game, and it did well, like actually pretty well, but of course in a small scale. But then I think Tales from the Loop was like the next step that sort of put us on the map for a bunch of people. So that totally helped too.
And I'm always amazed by the number of games that you have. Right, it's Dragonbane, it's Vesson, it's Blade Runner, One Ring, Alien, Invincible, Tales from the Loop, Forbidden Lands. We could just go on. Yeah. And you must have. Are they like your children? Do you have a favorite? Can you say that you have a favorite?
That's very hard. It varies a bit. I think our maybe it's a bit of a flaw, or is that we get excited about a bunch of things. So that's why we have so many games. So we want to, we get like ideas for a new game, and then we sort of do that. But then we also realize now we have like 20 plus game lines, and we also want to support them and take care of them. So it gets hard. It's hard. So yeah, no, which is like the favorite that tends to vary a lot. The one I'm working on, most of the time, the one I'm working on at the moment is like the favorite. But yeah, I think, like, there's of course like a few of them that are more closer to my heart. I think Blade Runner was one of those that was very much a passion project and a dream to really do, since that film, was part of. I was, still think it's one of the best films ever made. So getting a chance to do that, I think that game has a of course, it's close to my heart. But that goes for Mutant Year Zero as well, since that was my first RPG. So there's, all of them. Invincible is a lot of fun doing a superhero game. So yeah, it's very hard to choose like one or two. So I think usually it's the one we're working on at the moment.
Have there been any that have been more difficult than others to create, or ones that are more fun and more just bring more joy than others?
Some are harder to work on. That's totally the case. But we tend to get. So far we've been, fortunate enough to work with a lot of people, also external creators that have helped. Like, for both Blade Runner, Alien, like those big licenses, we're like super fans of those universes. But then you need like that someone who's so deep in all of the lore. And in a way that just we cannot really be. So you need like those super experts, and we've been fortunate enough to find them and have them work with us on those games. So that, otherwise, that's always, of course, when you have a huge universe to dig into and make it justice, and because there's a big fan base already, and you have to follow your own vision for the game, but at the same time, be respectful for the universe and the fandom that's already out there. So that can be difficult, but also I think fun. I always preferred actually to play around in somebody else's world. And there are others in Free League who are more like world builder types. Like Teos, who did Simbaroom, for example, he's really into that. But for me, that's fun. But I'm more of a rules guy and a systems guy. So I think I enjoy turning like Blade Runner into an RPG, or turn Invincible into an RPG. That's a lot of fun for me. So I'm happy to work in others' universes.
So my players can then thank you for all of the broken limbs, critical injuries that they've had in Blade Runner. Is that? Yeah,
that is true. That is true. That can get a little bit Yeah, that's probably my fault. Yeah, you're right. Sorry about that. You can extend my condolences.
I will. I'll send the message to their hospital beds.
Great.
I do want to ask. You mentioned before, the art quality, and it is really incredible. Whether it's the Blade Runner box set, which to me is one of the best buys in role playing games, but also and the second edition uses white pages, but the first version of Alien is this all black ink and a lot of the books, whether it's One Ring or Vesson, they feel like they are a coffee table book or an art book.
Yeah.
And how did that happen? Is that a Swedish thing? Was it a deliberate art choice? Was it who your art director was? Like, how did this come to be that you have such?
Yeah, I think it's definitely been part of sort of our goals from the start, and it's we did. I think it's a few different things. I mean, I think working with Simon Stollenhag early on, that sort of set a tone because his art is so good. And also we have for Alien, and then of course, this is the One Ring, amazing artists and an amazing art team out of Italy. Most of those, and that's a great team. And I think also for Alien and Blade Runner, the lead artist is actually in-house. Is Martin Griep. He's one of the co-founders or co-owners of Free League, and he did also Coriolis, yeah, exactly, and Simbaroom, which are original. So Martin Griep has done a lot of the art for Coriolis, Simbaroom, Alien, Blade Runner, and more. I think his work has also been a huge part of the visual profile of our games, and then that has sort of carried over into other games as well, like the One Ring and so on. That we have other teams working on right now, but that it has to be at that level for it to feel like a Free League game or something. So that has always been important, and it remains so.
So your art is so good in the books that I heard a rumor that the only way Free League could do books this gorgeous had to be like something like an art loan from the government or something like that. Like, did that happen, or how did you make such a, because it must have been a higher investment, right? Like all of this art can be one of the most expensive inputs.
Right. Yeah, no, art can be costly for sure. That is true. I don't know. No, we didn't get a grant or anything. No, I mean, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think we applied for something for one of the art books that Simon did like 10 years ago. And I may have gotten something, a small thing, but that was just for the art book. There is no grant. There are no grants for making RPGs. You can actually get a small grant here for a gaming group, which I think is crazy and amazing. You can actually have it's called a study circle, and it's a thing. You can do that. You can just apply, and then you get some money. Not a lot, but that's not what we've been doing. That's not for it's not for a publisher. No, it's I'm not. I think having of course Martin on the team. He's part of Free League, so of course he's that's so. Well, so he's not external in that sense. So that has, of course, helped. And I think one thing that we did, and that maybe, and that's going back to Simon Stollenhag, is that we based the game off of his art. So that meant we could actually use his art for the art books in the game. And then he did some additional art for the game as well. But we had that amazing art to base it on. And we actually did a similar thing for the Vaesen game, because that's also based on an art book about Nordic folklore that Johan Egerkrans did and wrote and illustrated before. So we actually approached him. He's also an old role player, and we based Vaesen off of his art. And then of course we created the world and the setting and the details, and he did new art, but that's still, we had that basis of that gorgeous art. So that definitely helped to sort of, instead of creating all of the art for a game, we actually created the game based on the art a couple of times. So I think that helped.
That's great.
Yeah, we've talked about so many different game lines, and you even mentioned that it's hard not to go back and to support those old game lines. Was it a decision to spread out further and make different games rather than focusing on supporting 1, 2, or 3 or 4 lines?
Yeah. No, I think not really. There was no real strategic plan there, even though I think that it has some benefits that we don't have all of the eggs in one basket. We have and that's kind of fun because of course there's some overlap with our fans or the people who play our games, but there's also some differences. Like you have Twilight 2000 crowd is not the same as the Basing crowd. There's maybe some overlap, but there's also quite of like different specific communities for each game, which I think is great, and you see that especially like when we go to Gen Con or something, and you actually meet you meet those people face to face, which is great. So no, but I think the way it turned out that way originally is just that we get excited about new things all the time, and we want to try another game. So I think that's always been the main driver. It's more of an issue now that we feel we have to support the games, and then we can't don't just leave them by the wayside. Even though there are some lines that we do less because we have to we can't do equal amount because it's just too much. So there's a few game lines that perhaps we don't support as well as some of the others, but we try to support them all in some way.
Yeah. And overall you find that the strategy brings in more audiences, because it was interesting, like for Dungeons and Dragons in 2nd edition, there was an employee there that said, our problem was we made too many settings and we split the audience. So one group was playing Planescape and one group was playing Dark Sun or whatever. And so there wasn't enough, but for you, it seems the opposite. And is that due to the modern market? Like, how have you,
Right. I mean, I don't know, to be honest. But it seems to be working, and maybe it's. I mean, I feel somehow. I mean, I think Dungeons and Dragons is great. I played it some, not a lot, but quite a bit. But I think a lot of Free League fans seem to be people who have played a lot, probably D&D, but are looking for new stuff, to trying different games. I think that's a common thing that we often get, that they don't want another D&D. They want something different, something that surprises them, and they want to. I mean, a lot of them feel like they are pretty experienced role players and know what they want, and they've played a lot, and they want to try new things and new games. So I think that's the sort of people that want to try our games, or seem to be enjoying our games, and there seem to be enough of them for that to work. But I don't think we'll ever grow to be like huge, because that, I think it's a bit too niche for that. But I think the niche is large enough for us to make this work, which is good for us and hopefully good for the players too.
You have made a lot of games that are based on IPs. Obviously, the One Ring, Blade Runner, Aliens, right? How has it been? And maybe, I guess, hearing you speak, going back to the beginning with Tales from the Loop, how do you choose IPs and balance that with other role-playing games that you are creating, dreaming up on your own? How do you find that balance? And are there other dream IPs that you want to chase? Like you just announced the Stormbringer, Michael Moorcock game will be coming. And
Absolutely. No, that is always hard, and we have some a lot of discussions here as well, and some different opinions of what we should be doing next, and so on. So it's usually driven by somebody really wanting to do this, so we get a chance to do that, but we do try to balance it, so we have a few of our own original game lines and keep them alive and healthy, and really take care of them very well and support them. And then we have the licensed games as well, but we try to have a good balance there. So for the original games, it's like Dragonbane, Coriolis, and Symbaroum are probably the biggest. Vaesen as well, even though that's a collaboration, but it's still pretty much a not original IP in that sense. So those, we're really trying to support them very well, because they are, of course, a license can come and go. We could lose it at some point. We don't, it's not ours. So we try to have a solid base of original games also. But then the licenses are a lot of fun and great to work with, and to expand like the audience and everything. But a balance between the two, I think, is what we're trying to do.
Smart.
Not
Go
only
ahead.
do you work with different IPs, but you also work with other RPG publishing companies. You've partnered with the Two Little Mice. You've partnered with Morkborg and Pirate Borg. What brought you into those relationships, and how have they affected how your company works?
Right. Yeah, that's been great. I mean, we have that. I mean, usually we have them. We have like a sub. We call it like a sub label called the Free League Workshop, which we use as a sort of a banner for games that we published that we didn't create ourselves. Morkborg was probably the first one. Well, we did a few smaller ones in Sweden earlier, but the big one, I mean, the first, I think, international was Morkborg, which turned into like this huge, strange phenomenon, which is fantastic. So, we figured that was. It's a way to work with others because we always enjoy that. And there are a lot of great creators out there. And we realized that maybe not all of them have, because we got to a point where we could actually, we had like our own distribution and all of that set up. So it was not that much harder to add another game into that. But for them, it was probably a big step to take to get all of that stuff. So they could focus on creating the game and we could help them with all that other stuff. So that worked out really well. I think Morkborg was, of course, a very good first one, because then others followed. So we've been doing, I don't know, we have a bunch of them now, like Death in Space and Into the Odd, and of course the Outgunned series with Two Little Mice. And it's great to actually be able to work with other creators that we really respect and be able to work with them and publish the games. I think it's been a great way to expand our game lines and but we still have it under the sub label to make it, because we are also a game studio, not just a publisher. So we still try to make it clear that these are our own games and those are the other like external games. And that's not to say they're bad, but just that so it's clear for everybody that, okay, this is like the core Free League game, and these are like others that are also great, but they're more like curated selection of other games that we publish.
Fantastic. How do you balance? Balance has come up a lot. You have to balance a lot, which is maybe indicative of how busy you are. But one of the things you have to balance is crowdfunding. And it's always amazing to fans. We can see the reactions on our Discord and our Patreon, where they will say, oh, a new Free League product was just announced. You can pre-order it and buy it directly from their store. And then the next time it's a crowdfunder. And you seem to have sort of a rhythm that you're finding of what should be crowdfunding, what should be sold directly. That must be really hard to choose. How do you do that?
Yeah, no, it is. And crowdfunding has its sides to it, but I think it still has a good, place in our work. It's of course it's great to have that direct connection to the community, to have that collaboration, and it does also create more visibility than just a normal pre-order. So we can't crowdfund too much, so we'll usually try to pick like the little bit higher profile projects, like a whole new game or like a major expansion or something, and we can't have too many. I think 1 year so it's maybe 3 or 4 per year is like no more. I think 3 is like what we're sort of trying to do now, and absolutely not more than that, because it's for everybody's sake. I think it's too much.
Okay.
Yeah.
How has the issue of U.S. tariffs affected your company? I've tried to explain to folks. I've worked for Ghostfire Gaming in Australia, and I tried to explain to people in the U.S. this is a big deal. This is costing people jobs.
Yeah.
How has it affected Free League?
Yeah, it was a bit of a worry, and of course it did affect us. But yeah, it was, especially like when that was all announced. We were a bit, that was we didn't know what was going to happen really. When we did have we had shipments coming into the US at that specific point, so that was a bit worrying. I think so far it's been okay. We definitely felt the impact of it, but it's been I mean, I think the US is about half or a little bit around half of our market. So that's a lot, but we still have a half elsewhere, it balances out a little bit. And of course, the tariffs have been going up and down, and they haven't been that, like the way they were announced in the beginning. They were even, I mean, they're not at that level now. So that means we have been we're definitely affected, but I think some others have probably been hit worse than us. Maybe, like I think, especially since we do produce some like the boxed set and things, we do produce some of them in China, so that was a thing. But then the books are produced elsewhere, so that they are also not as heavily impacted as like boxed sets. So yeah, we're definitely impacted by it, but we've been fortunate. We've been okay. I mean, it hasn't been like deadly threat to our business, at least not yet.
And do you print in Sweden and Europe? Like,
we print the books in most of them now in Lithuania, so it's another small country over here on the other side of the Baltic. So yes, nearby, but not in Sweden.
So I have a question about organized play. We both love the GameholeCon convention, which is a place where we've often seen Free League organized play. And I know there's sort of there was a nonprofit group that was running a lot of Free League games. And I can tell you our Discord is full of people who recently said, oh no, I'm signing up for GameholeCon and I can't find Free League events. And we know organized play is hard, but we wanted to kind of ask you, how have you found organized play? How, what are kind of the difficulties? Why is there no Free League at GameholeCon this year? Will we get it back?
Right. Yeah, that is a very good question. No, I think organized play is probably one of our sort of weaknesses, and not because we don't want to do it, but it doesn't help to be on the other side of the Atlantic to arrange organized play in the US. We do have a great team. We work with Lurking Fears. I don't know if you're familiar with those, but they have a great team running organized play at lots of conventions. So they are running that with us, for us. I mean, at Gen Con and others like Origins and elsewhere. So they help us out on conventions a lot, and especially with organized play. So they do a great job, but it's still, of course, had we actually been in the States all the time, all of Free League, of course, we could have probably done an even better job at being present in like stores and smaller conventions and everywhere, but it's a little bit hard. But that said, GameholeCon, I know I actually have never been, but I hear so many good things about it that I think I have to go soon. I don't know why or who right off, why we are not, doing anything. I think we are there, but maybe I think we'll be there with a booth, but maybe don't have organized play. I'm not sure, but I think it's a great place that we probably should be, and also make sure there are games to play. So thank you for that input. I'll get to the team here and see what we can do.
Well, I'm also saying it for my own good, because I've had so much fun going to GameholeCon as a convention where I can try out games. So I think I played my first One Ring at GameholeCon, my first Blade Runner for sure I played there. I had purchased already, but I was like, you get to see someone else run it, and now you're like, I feel great about running it. So it is very helpful.
No, that's a very, very good point.
Oh, so the last question for me is going to be about open gaming license. And what is your policy with your open gaming license, and why do you have that policy?
Yeah, I mean, we've recently expanded it too. So because we did it initially for Dragonbane basically we did our own license. This happened. We've been doing it in a couple of different ways. I think first we had the Year Zero engine license, which is for the sort of game system that we use for a bunch of our games. So that was like an open license for that, and we had a system reference document, and then we expanded that and then we had an open license for Dragonbane to create supplements for Dragonbane, and now we've expanded it to a bunch of other games as well. So now it's available for Coriolis and a few Forbidden Lands and Symbaroum as well. I think it's only for the original IPs. We can't have it for licensed titles because, for obvious reasons, I guess. So No, I mean, there's so much creativity going on in the community. So and we've seen that we also have a Free League workshop program on Drive-Thru RPG. So there's also that. And there's so much great stuff coming out, and we just felt we want to do more of that, and giving the community a chance to create stuff using the Zero engine or modules and supplements for our other games. We feel it's like a win-win. Hopefully, I mean, we get more. We can't do as much. I mean, that's like I mentioned, one of the weaknesses we have. It's hard to support so many game lines. But now looking at Dragonbane, there's like dozens of great supplements for Dragonbane out there that we didn't even do. So that helps the game. For us, it's like great because that helps the game line stay alive and gives lots of options and adventures to play for the community. Whereas, and hopefully for the creators, they get a chance to publish something for a game that they like, and hopefully maybe get some eyes on it, since that can help to have like that logo on it and part of that community. And it seems to be, I mean, it's for Dragonbane, definitely. For the other games, it's very early. We do see some things for Coriolis and others as well, but Dragonbane is the one that has taken off. And that's just been fantastic to see. We're just, yeah, it's just, creating is such a big part of role-playing, I think, for a lot of people. I mean, whether you're just a GM, just prepping your game, that's creating something. And then I think it just ties into, and then the step to actually write a module or something, it's just all comes together. It's not the big, and it was the same thing for me. I started playing and then I started writing almost straight away. I mean, it's so connected. So having helping the community do that is, it's just been fantastic to see. And it helps us too to keep our game lines alive. So it's just a win-win thing for us, really.
Love it. Well, we've held you for a long time, so I want to ask my last question, which is just really where you see Free League's future. You've got a crowdfunder now for some awesome One Ring books. We did talk about that in a recent show, but where do you see where would you like to be in 5 years? Like, what are you? Yeah. We're all very curious.
It's a very good question, and it's not that easy to answer. I think we have never been very good at making long-term plans or being super strategic. We usually go with projects that we feel passionate about and go for it. So it's hard to say and what those will be. Of course, there's maybe a dream game out there. So there's one or two licenses that would be great, but you never know about those. So it's you can't really plan for it that well. I mean, personally, also we don't want to grow. I mean, we had some opportunities to maybe grow faster by partnering with. We do partner with a lot of people, but we don't want to grow by being purchased by another entity. We still want to stay small, stay independent, so we can make the games that we love and continue to be very hands-on. So I don't see us becoming something different entirely. We still want to stay small and hands-on and still making the games that we publish and playing them. And so it's really hard to say what will be very different. Hopefully we can do more of that and stay relevant, of course, and that people will still find our games, play our games, and just continue to do that. I think that's sort of the dream. At the moment, we don't have any dramatic plans for drastic changes or anything, but things can happen. But from where I'm sitting, we're really happy where we are right now.
Good.
Yeah, Adam Bradford was on our show a couple of weeks ago, and to talk about Free League Unbound.
Yeah,
what are your hopes for that program?
Right. I mean, that is a fantastic thing, and that's something we wouldn't have come up with ourselves. We're pretty analog bunch, to be honest, really. So that's something, and that's one of the partnerships that we have that I mentioned. We have great partnership. That's one. And Adam has been a fantastic partner for that, and also, of course, for writing the Invincible game with me. That was a fantastic project. And then they proposed Unbound to us. He and his partner who are creating it.
Mhm.
And that's I think that can be hopefully a way to grow our audience, and a great way for fans to keep their games and access it more easily. And so I hope that can be a way to grow Free League and just offer our games in a new way. So that is one thing that I hope can change in the next 5 years. That grows into something big and beautiful. It's doing well, but it could, I think that can definitely take off. That's something that I'd like to see, and something that I couldn't really do myself anyway. And nobody in the core team here, we're not tech people. So this is great to see that someone like Adam, who is so great at what he does, to come in and do this with our games. I mean, that has been very cool, and we hope to see that really take off and grow.
Right. Well, where do you recommend for folks listening to this show? What should they be following to stay up on the latest Free League developments? Maybe to follow your work?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's we have a newsletter, so that's easy enough. You can sign up on our freeleaguepublishing.com. It's like the website. And then, of course, most of the normal social media, we try to be present as much as we can.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to answer everything when we see it, but it's hard. But yeah, so all of the normal social media as well should work. But yeah, I think the newsletter is probably this, because then when we have a series, something solid to announce, and we don't try to spam people, so it's no more than one a week, and sometimes less. So it shouldn't be too much of a load on the inbox. So I think that's a good place to get news and information about what we're doing.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tomas, for coming on and chatting with us today.
Thank you.
And thank you for all the great work that you do for this RPG hobby of ours.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Take care.
Yeah. What a great conversation we had there with Tomas. I love Free League, and I can't wait to see what's coming next, especially with Free League Unbound. I think that will add a whole new audience to the amazing Free League games.
Yeah, love it. And Adam makes such great work. So seeing those minds come together. But I loved hearing his story, the games in Sweden, the way they approach things. And I love that so many creative RPGs are somehow doing so well. And the answer is, we kind of do what we're passionate about. We should really plan more. I love that.
Well, keep doing what you're doing there,
my life.
Tomas, and everyone at Free League, because you're doing great work. And I have to drop out now because I have a meeting and I need to do a couple things.
So we'll say thank you to everybody.
We will say thank you to everybody, especially all you MS Darkana fans. Love you. We'll catch you next time here on Mastering Dungeons.